you know, some of it sounded more German, some of it sounded more French.
Isn't it?
Bern, Switzerland.
Bern's
That's where we went.
German side.
Yeah, that's where we went.
Things going on there.
I wish I
The cheese is also all these movies.
Nice talking to you.
Turn your microphones on.
Everybody make sure your mics are on. Normally they turn them on for us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I didn't know if this would happen. If you could give us 1 minute.
Sure.
Okay.
Please take note that I was calling it on time. I like the minutes show that it starts exactly 4:30. I'm time fanatical.
They're putting you to work, Stuart.
See, that didn't last long, did it? You ready, Freddie?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission of Leesburg, Florida to order. It's Thursday, May 18th, 2023, 4:30. Please stand for the invocation and pledge the flag.
Dear Lord, we want you to be with us today as we take on the business of the city of Leesburg. We pray that the decisions we make here today will be pleasing in your sight. Pray this in thy most holy name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
These chairs work.
All right. Grant, can I have you go ahead and swear everybody in?
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to do that. If all city staff and members of the audience who plan to provide any testimony today will stand and raise your right hand, please, so we can get everyone sworn in.
If you want to speak, please stand. I thought so.
All right. Okay. All right. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you give this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Dan, you want to give everybody the news?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 18, 2023 Planning Commission meeting of the City of Leesburg. My name is Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Leesburg. Staff present today includes Senior Planners Candy Harper, Christine Rock, and Diane Yeckel, and Planners Max Van Allen and Melissa Metters. Today's meeting agenda is available on the table by the exit door. If you would like to speak on a case, we'd ask you to please sign the speaker's registry and turn it in to Diane, who is sitting here to my left. Under the rules of participation, the meeting is conducted in the following process. Number one, the chairman will announce the case. The staff will then read exhibits, including maps, photos, and text, into the record and present this information on the screens. The staff will then read a recommendation into the record. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak about the request. And then the chairman will allow time for public comment, and the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. The chairman will close the case to the public at that point, and the commission will discuss the case and take a vote. At that point, the commission moves on to the next case. The Planning Commission is a citizen-appointed board that is appointed by the City Commission, and they have two major responsibilities. One is to make final decisions on cases such as variances and conditional uses, and the second is to make recommendations for issues which are to be heard by the City Commission. Today, the Planning Commission will be making recommendations on the first two cases, which are for the Silver Lake Woods project. Those recommendations will then be forwarded to the City Commission for final decisions. The next two cases, which consist of a conditional use permit and a variance request, will be final decisions by the Planning Commission. Please note the tentative dates for these hearings for the City Commission which are listed in bold on the agenda. I want to advise everyone that these dates are subject to be changed to earlier or later dates, so check with the planning and zoning staff, my office, which is across the street, or the city clerk's office regarding final hearing dates. And then finally, on behalf of the planning staff and City of Leesburg Planning Commission, we'd like to thank you for your participation in today's public hearing process. Mr. Chairman, we are ready for you to announce the first case.
Okay. Before we do that, we'll approve the minutes if they're acceptable. You've received your minutes. If you've reviewed them, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed? Okey-doke. All righty. On public hearing case number LSCP 23-126, you go ahead and present your information, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to request that we take these two cases together for presentation purposes, and then they can be voted on separately afterwards. By way of background, this is a proposal for a single-family residential development generally located west of Radio Road and east and west of Park Lane on a site consisting of approximately 60 acres and proposing 85 units total for a density of 1.41 units per acre. The request consists of two parts. The first is for a small-scale comprehensive plan map amendment from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate. And the second request is a rezoning from Lake County A agriculture to City of Leesburg planned unit development. Ms. Christine Rock, Senior Planner with the office, will present the maps and photo exhibits, including aerial zoning, future and surrounding land use, wetlands, flood zone maps, and CRA maps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the subject property. So this is an aerial showing the location of the subject property. It is west of Radio Road, north of Jackson Road, and east and west of Park Lane. The subject property is currently located within unincorporated Lake County, but it is adjacent to City of Leesburg PUD zonings. The property is currently zoned Lake County Agriculture and is adjacent to Lake County zoning districts of agriculture R2, R3, and R6. The proposed zoning is Leesburg PUD. The subject property is adjacent to properties that are designated as Leesburg Estate Residential to the south. The subject property is designated as Lake County Urban Low Future Land Use and is adjacent to Lake County Urban Low Density and Urban Medium Density Future Land Uses. And the proposed future land use is Leesburg Estate Residential. The surrounding land uses are residential, pasture improved, timber, and non-agricultural acreage. There are wetlands on this property, and they are located on the western side of the property. There is also some flood zone on this property, which is also located on the western side. And it is adjacent to Leesburg City Commission District Number 5. City staff posted notification signs on Radio Road, Jackson Road, and Park Lane, and these photos are from Radio Road. From Radio Road, looking into the property and looking north along Radio Road. These two pictures were looking south along Radio Road and across Radio Road. These pictures were taken looking into the property from Park Lane and north along Park Lane. These pictures were taken looking south along Park Lane and across Park Lane. These pictures were taken looking at the property from Jackson Road and east along Jackson Road. And then these last pictures were taken looking across Jackson Road and west along Jackson Road. That's all I have.
Thank you, Christine. With that, we move to the departmental review summary. The project was sent out to all city departments plus Lake County government and the Lake County School Board. There were no substantive comments from the city departments. The school board did indicate that a concurrency review would be required. Lake County Public Works noted that the following requirements for Radio Road would include left and right turn lanes on Radio Road, sidewalks along road frontages, traffic impact analysis and signal warrant analysis, and additional right-of-way would be required. For Jackson and Park Lane, Lake County Public Works noted that there may be additional right-of-way needed along with sidewalks and along the road frontages. On the public responses, per the City of Leesburg notice requirements, as project notice was sent out to the surrounding property owners. We did not receive any specific comments other than one written response for disapproval, which talked about noise pollution, peaceful view, wildlife, and schools. Overall, the project request is for 60 plus or minus acres. 28 of those acres will be preserved in existing wetlands. The only permitted uses are single-family residential. There are 3 lot sizes within this PUD with a total of 85 lots. 52 of those lots would be 50 by 130, which is 6,500 square feet with a minimum house size of 1,500 square feet. 18 lots at 60 by 130, which is 7,800 square feet and a 1,600 square foot minimum house. And then 15 lots at 70 by 130, which is 9,100 square feet for an 1,800 square foot house. So that's the split of 52, 18, and 15 at 50, 60, and 70. As seen on the site plan, the access point for the property is located on the south side, not on Radio Road, and is required to be a boulevard-type access with a landscape median. I believe that landscape median's got to be 8 feet wide, which allows for emergency access vehicles to have room to maneuver. There is a 25-foot buffer, and I apologize, I left my pointer, but there's a 25-foot buffer around the exterior of the property on the north, east, and south. On the top of the screen here, you can see the wetlands and the stormwater pond. That would be on the west side. That's buffering the west. The 60 and 70-foot lots have to be located on the exterior of the development adjacent to Radio Road and Jackson Road. All the 50-foot lots are internal to the subdivision, so the smaller lots are on the inside. Each home is required to have a 2-car garage. All lots smaller than 60 feet have to have gutters all around the house to direct stormwater away. There is the requirement for a split rail fence installed on the north, south, and eastern boundary. And there is an option in the PUD to install a 6-foot PVC if the developer wanted to do that. There are recreational requirements for .39, which is about 0.4 acres, to include uses such as a children's playground, a dog park, a gazebo, something like that for the internal use. Otherwise, the standard PUD conditions are in effect, such as the design and architectural standards that go into all PUDs, landscape and buffer requirements that will include a tree in each front yard and rear yard, the dark sky lighting, which by the city's interpretation is angling the light and shading it so that it does not go on to other properties. I'd like to go ahead and read the recommendations into the record for these 2 cases.
Well, everybody's on that map. Can I?
Yes, sir.
Everybody, this is just a housekeeping thing. Is everybody good with the way this map is? Because the west side is up. So everybody know to look at the arrow to make sure you know which is north and south. Because, I mean, we can ask for it to get them in the future turn
Okay.
if you're not used to that. But the good thing about the way it is now is it's larger and you can see it better. Because if they turn it sideways, they'd have to shrink it down to make it fit a 8.5 by 11. Is everybody good with the way it was? Okay. Sorry.
No, thank you.
That just popped in my head. So.
No, that's correct. The west side is up on the page.
Right.
In order to make it fit.
Yeah, because you were giving north and south directions and all that, so I want to make sure
Yes,
everybody
sir.
understood it.
Thank you. For Project Silver Lake Woods, the request for the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment under case number LSCP 23-126, Planning and Zoning Division recommends approval of the request for the following reasons. 1, the project meets the requirements for Chapter 163.3184 Florida statutes for large-scale comprehensive plan amendments. 2, the proposed large-scale comprehensive plan amendment is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of City of Leesburg Estate, Residential, and Lake County Urban Medium and Urban Low Density. 3, the proposed zoning classification of PUD is compatible as conditioned with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD and Lake County R6, which is urban residential, R3, which is medium residential, R2, which is estate residential, and A, agriculture. 4, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element, Goal 1, Objective 1.6. The action requested, therefore, is to approve the staff's recommendation to change the future land use of the subject property from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate residential and forward the recommendation to the City Commission for consideration. On the second case, which is the Silver Lake Woods request for rezoning to PUD for a single-family residential development under case number PUD 23-129. The Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of this request for the following reasons. 1, the proposed zoning classification of plan unit development is compatible as conditioned with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD and Lake County R6, which is urban residential, R3, which is medium residential, R2, estate residential, and A, agricultural. 2, the proposed large-scale comprehensive plan, the proposed rezoning classification is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of City of Leesburg estate residential and Lake County urban medium and urban low. And 3, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element Goal 1, Objective 1.6. The action requested is to approve staff's recommendation to rezone the subject property from Lake County A agriculture to PUD and in the City of Leesburg and forward to the City Commission for their consideration. Mr. Chairman, staff is recommending approval, and we have Mr. Jerome Hennon of Hennon Development here to represent this case, answer any questions you may have. I believe he has a presentation that he would like to make as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. State your name and address for the
So
record.
Jerome Hennin, Winter Park, Florida, 1065 West Morse in Winter Park, Florida. Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. I don't have much to add, actually, to Dan Miller because there is a thorough explanation of what we're doing. I just wanted to tell you a few things on our development capacity. We've done this for 40 years now. It's a family development. And we traditionally try to integrate as much as possible ahead of time what makes a project more desirable and also very respectful. We believe in that development consisting of 85 homes. We've done this. I would emphasize the fact that about 65% of the site is preserved, which I believe is an important factor. We also introduced ahead several so let's try to see if I am technically savvy in so see if it's done, obviously explain that. So when you look at this, which is on the right side, I believe, we have also integrated ahead not only the preservation of the sites, we integrated ahead also the buffers, large buffers on both sides along the roads. We also integrated several type of homes, 70 to 70 footer lots, 60 footer and 50 footer. So it creates not only different space, but also creates a different variation of homes. We also integrated something important, and we redesigned it not too late ago. The fact to try to preserve the trees that we consider historical in that area. We have done ahead a full tree survey of the site, which is not shown on this presentation, but which is very important and depicted. And I can give you one, maybe if you want to see. Important trees that we believe are an asset to the subdivision.
Can you you can give this up, right? Because it's got to go into the record.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start it down there.
Which we believe is an asset. So we modified slightly the roads. We modified also the position of certain lots to be able to doing this. And I can give you this as well, which is the full tree survey. So we'll see that we actually looked at everything. And I know you may not have that type of document, at this time of the project, but for me, it was important for us to do that. And I think for the neighbors, also very important that they understand we try to preserve the nature of what is there and which consider being an asset to the future homeowners as well. Like I said earlier, we have the habit to do all the studies ahead of time, so we've done a full environmental study. We flagged already the wetlands. And this is something important, so we're not just designing the first project based on what we believe is
start down there.
We have flagged the wetlands as well. We also did a survey related to animals. We already know that we had a few dove turtles there, I think by the number of 9, if I'm not wrong. This is a type of thing that evaluates, but we ahead try to see what's going on there and what are the requirements and obligations. So we also want to give you some numbers. Totally, right now we are at 1.41 density per acre, which I believe is very low, but due to the nature of the site and also what we're trying to create up there, it goes with the theme of the homes we're trying to build up there. Like I said, 63.94% of the site is actually preserved in different capacities. And you have a habit to see about 4 dwelling a unit, an acre, and we're going to be 1.41 for this project. I don't want to take all of your time, but so this is a repetition of what I just said. What's important is about traffic as well. We've done a traffic study, which actually give us, and we obtained that actually. We consume, and I repeat something significant about the traffic study here. We consume only 5% of a roadway directional peak hour generalized service volume within 1 mile radius. Therefore, the development impact on the surrounding roadway networks is, I know it doesn't, people don't like to see it, but the traffic study say that it's not significant as far as hurting the current traffic. It is adding, but it's per definition not significant. So therefore, we have a tier 1 exemption. So we had that traffic study done and also this analysis. Therefore, this doesn't preclude the fact that all of the improvements that are depicted by Lake County when they want this to be done are actually to be done. Left and right lane accesses, boulevard entry is another factor. There is a corner that you see that we did not use there. This is a property we tried to acquire. I understand what it was for because it didn't make sense, to round the corner and use that. But it's actually a property used by Lake County, acquired by Lake County, to do an additional retention pond based on improvements that are, projected on Radio Road. So Lake County wants to use this for an additional pond. The back properties are going to be basically not receiving an impact. We're very open to different type of fencing when they want them, because sometimes people rather have the trees and buffers. And I'm a big fan of natural buffers rather than vinyl fences. But again, this is a choice of developer, and I like to hear from the neighbors about that type of thing once we go, more into the opportunity to discuss all this. I want to also finalize the fact that we do have our civil engineer with us here. would you have any very technical question, he would be very happy to answer those questions. I'm going to give you also a document that you can include, which is concerning the traffic study. So I wanted to thank you, and I'll respond to questions and after.
Okay. Is it any questions of the applicant?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I got confused when the map was turned, which is,
The entrance is on the record.
yeah, I said, I believe I said the entrance was on the south, and I was looking at the map, it's on the east, as you can see up here, so I apologize for that, but I want to correct that for the record.
Okay.
I was looking at the map.
Well, that's what made me think of that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We'll probably have questions for you after
Thank you.
the neighbors. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public now. You're going to be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Please don't repeat what your neighbor says, because we don't need to hear the same thing over and over. That way we can get through everybody's opportunity. So anybody want to speak or come forward and give us your name and your address?
I don't think he was sworn in. He was late.
Were you not sworn in?
Want me to swear in?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And did anybody else come in late after being? Okay, very good. All right, we'll get everybody here. All right. Would you please raise your right hand for me, sir? Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My name is Armando Framil. I live at 9926 Jackson Road. That's directly across the street from now the city of Leesburg. I'm surprised that I'm in the city of Leesburg. I thought I lived in Lake County.
You do.
Yes,
You do live in
but
Lake County.
as a county property, and now this thing has been rezoned or switched over to the city. First of all, I don't understand how that happened without notice to the people that live there.
There was notice provided to all properties within 200 feet of the boundaries
Correct.
of this property.
For this meeting, sir, not for the switch. I'm surprised that I'm at.
There is no notice requirement on annexations because all annexations require a future land use and zoning hearing. This body does not hear the annexations. That is heard by the city commission.
So I would have thought it was the county, but again, I'm new here. I've only been here for 3 years, so I got to learn.
Hang on.
Yeah, and I would just point out that the property has not been annexed yet. As Mr. Miller was saying, there are certain issues that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear. Annexation is not one of those issues.
Okay.
That issue is only taken up at City Commission, and it hasn't gone to them yet. So it's
So those
still
are the meetings in May
technically
and June.
within the county right now. Yes, sir.
My question is, living directly across the street from the development, I have nothing against the development. I certainly have something against the buffer or the lack of buffer. If you put a wall, 6-foot wall, no matter how it looks like, in front of my house, I'm not going to like that. If you leave trees, if you leave 25 feet of buffer zone for the trees that are existing at this point, that would be nice. In fact, 50 feet would be even better. I don't know how you can do that, but having a wall in front of my house is just unsightly. Having traffic being dumped. Have you ever driven down Jackson Road? It is a very nice, narrow road. If you have 85 homes with 2 cars each, that's 170 cars a day going through Jackson Road. That's too much. You need to have access on Radio Road, and you need to control the egress or the access on Jackson Road. That's only fair. So those are my, I don't have questions. I just kind of like look at it and wait, whoa, it's gone pretty far. Nobody ever mentioned that. I saw people surveying the trees. That's all. 3 minutes are up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll have the developer back up here to answer a lot of the questions at the end. So when you speak now is the only time you'll speak. So if you got questions on your mind, go ahead and ask them. And that way they can keep track of them and try to answer them all at the end. Because we're not going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, anybody else? State your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Dennis Enix at 34337 Park Lane, and been living there almost 50 years. Anyway, had some questions. I know when you were talking about the on Park Lane, there might be some need to get some obtain some more right-of-way for sidewalks or something. What part of the road were you talking about there on Park Lane? Somebody mentioned something about that. That was a question I had.
Oh, yes, sir. That, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
That is a requirement coming out of Lake County, and it comes out of the developer's side of the road.
Right.
So
Okay.
it doesn't, if you live across the street, it's not coming out of your side of your property.
Yeah, well, I live at the end of the road
Yes,
there.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be nothing coming off my property.
Right.
Right.
And because the roads are legally controlled by Lake County, the way we set these up is that they support what is written in the plan unit development, supports whatever Lake County requires.
Yeah.
And in our dealings with them, they're only going to request the right-of-way from the developer if it is needed due to the turn lanes or something like that that may be indicated as needed by the traffic study, which I think Lake County did say they were going to need to put in the turn lanes and the decel lane.
Oh, you're talking about up
coming
on
in.
radio? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for years.
Yes, sir. And this will hopefully,
Right.
help out with that.
Yeah, but as far as on Park Lane, that's the easement coming down to my place. It's not a county road. We maintain it. People that live there.
Okay.
So,
So they can't do
Yeah.
anything with that. If that's private property, they can't
but
use that.
it will now belong to the person that's buying it. So what I'm asking, is there any plans for, is that going to remain like it is according to the map I got?
Regardless, correct me, Mr. City Attorney, if I'm wrong, regardless of who owns it, if you have an easement, that easement doesn't change.
Right.
Unless you agree to
Right.
it.
That's right. Typically, if you've got the recorded easement, that would
Yeah.
be something that runs with the title on the property, the
Right.
servient and the dominant estate. So you
Right.
should be okay under the typical arrangement.
And another thing, on this, looking at the drawing and everything on the retention pond, the almost 5 acres of retention pond in one area. I'm just wondering, the engineer was here, how deep that was going to be. Are they going to add to the grade that's there? How much and how deep is it going? That's a question there. Reference my well, that's where I get my drinking water. I've got a deep well there. And it's already been disturbed some by all the, I believe, by what's been going on in the area. It's a kind of a fragile area out there anyway, whales and whatever. So that was a question I have. And let's see here. And I do have the same. I know the county's supposed to take care of this on the turning lanes and stuff coming out, because even though there's not an entrance onto Jackson, that is, everybody's coming through now. We used to have signs up that said no through traffic. We have them on the other end, but it's like I'm going to Lowe's, I'm going to take this way. So nothing's done. There's no enforcement. It's like a racetrack. I feel sorry for the folks that live out there right along Park Lane. I mean, it gets dangerous out there. And it's become like a major thoroughfare for people going to college and to Leesburg even sometimes. I can see if they got a wreck out there on 44, you got to reroute. I understand that. But anyway, that's some of my concerns. I got to admit, I did like to see the deal about the wetlands. Of course, not a whole lot you can do in them anyway. And the way that the the way they come up with these 1 point, not even 2 per acre homes, let's get real. You're going to develop on this chunk of land. It's a lot thicker than that. I mean, it's misleading.
Yeah.
Those, I mean, really,
It's gross land, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But it sounds one way, so
Yeah.
I know what it means, but
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. But so it's a lot thicker, and
It's like statistics, you know.
all that
Depends how
water
you
when
get
it rains, it used to jump on lawns and that soil out there, you know, and it percolates real good and winds up where it's supposed to be. Now it's going to be some disruption in that, and so that's some of my concerns on that.
Okay.
That the traffic, the
I
water.
think that's your time there. I didn't turn it on, but I've been watching. I
That's
forgot,
fine.
so I've been watching on my phone.
I'm almost watching that clock.
I apologize for not turning it on. And we'll get the engineer up here at the end.
Okay.
So I'm trying to keep track of the questions. All right, next. And I'll turn on the clock. State your name and your address, please.
Pamela Favre, 34150 Park Lane. I live where he says he feels sorry for.
That's what I was waiting on.
Yeah. 90-degree curves. As I was telling someone earlier, it used to be gentrified, and when you were under 80, you were novel. We have an influx of people with small children, and they are everywhere, and that's a great concern because the traffic people come through there flying, as it is, even though you do have a 90-degree curve. My question is it going to be single-story homes or two-story homes? Because if they're two-story homes, then the ones on Jackson, that's going to take away a lot of additional privacy for the people who are on single-story homes on Jackson. Is there an emergency access for off of Park and or Jackson in the event of an emergency? Will there be, when they talk about Radio Road and having sidewalks and access on Radio Road, that corner is a death trap. I mean, there's been people run into people's homes on Radio Road as it is, and I can't imagine having a turn lane right after that curve at Jackson to get into your neighborhood. I think it's going to be scary. The other thing is dust control during the construction period. We are in a drought, and it's a hot mess. And on the backside with that huge development, it's been so messy for the other areas. Is there a diameter limitation? He said they were going to watch out for the historic trees. I'd like to define historic trees and minimum diameter of the trunks for trees to be removed from the property. And a wildlife plan, because a 6-foot fence will be great. If they want to put a 6-foot fence, then that means they get to keep all the wild hogs on their side, and it won't destroy everyone's lawn on Jackson, because that's what they're dealing with now. And with all of the development in that area, they're going to have to come and take that into consideration, because it's a hot mess with the wildlife out there. So.
Thank you.
Have a barbecue.
Yep.
Scared to death.
It's first come, first serve. Run.
I don't know how to use any of this stuff. I'm a country girl from Maine, and this is city to me. Jackson
State your
Road.
name and your
I'm
address, please.
sorry.
That's all right.
My name is Ellen Healy. I live at 9800 Jackson Road. I own 9800 Jackson Road. We've lived here 25 years, and we bought in here because it was peaceful and more like what I'm used to. Not really. This is still city to me, but Jackson Road is like Pammy said, it's all through there. It's just 90-degree turns from all over. I mean, it just goes like that all the way down to the lake. It's as the other gentleman stated, there's so much traffic there now, and I almost saw a kid get hit because there's a stop sign at the end of Jackson Road. The cars do use that and have used it for years and made traffic double on Jackson Road and down through Park Lane and down to the water. And it's just hard to imagine anyone destroying that lovely road we have on Jackson Road. I couldn't understand those maps. I got twisted around and everything, but I don't think it's necessary. We have 3 to 4 housing developments within 2 to 3 miles on Radio Road going in right now. They aren't even filled. They're just barely getting filled, and they're going on and on and on and on and on. And I don't see any need of another housing development on that road because it's just housing development out on that end. In my opinion, this project is not needed because of that. There are many, it's going to devalue our houses right into the woods or whatever. I know there's a lot of wetlands, and I know there's a lot of water. I don't understand, is the main entrance coming in from Radio Road, correct? Okay, I don't want it. I like it now because I don't see any people. I don't see any houses. I see forest and then old golf course, which is great. I don't like to see too many little homes with no trees, no wildlife. I like the wild boar. I don't like them to get up my lawn, Pam, either, but I'd rather have the wildlife than nothing. And we have turtles, too, right in back of our house that are I just love them. They're just great. And I don't like any more people in this area. We just can't stand it. The mall isn't going either. That didn't, because, it's just, I don't know. The only part that isn't crammed houses, it's quiet, mostly retired people with nice, fairly large lots. Ours is a little over 1/2 acre, which is tiny to me because like I say, I'm not used to the city. But
That's
when you
your time.
cram, huh?
That's 3 minutes.
Oh no, I've got a lot more to read. Jackson Road and Park Lane.
Sorry.
4 developments, and we don't need another development. We just plain don't need it. We don't need traffic. We don't need kids.
Next.
Bicycles and everything.
Is there anybody else?
Basically, they
What?
touched
Come up to the microphone first, please.
Basically, they have touched on
State
some
your
of the
name and your
things.
address, please.
Is Wanda Adams. It's 34511 Radio Road in Leesburg, Florida.
Thank you.
Our place adjoined Mr. Dennis. However, they did not disclose. We're being bombarded with turkeys, deers, bears. The wild hogs is an issue. You have the safety of kids. You have the safety of individuals. If you've ever been out in your yard trying to do work and wild hogs creep up on you, that's a scary feeling. Now, he said he's going to preserve the wildlife. Okay, something needs to be done before someone is harmed or injured. You can go up and down Radio Road. People are violating the speed limit. No one drives 40. They're passing. They're drag racing. It is terrible. You have to live there in order to, like the residents, complain. And it's sad we have to complain. Even the people that could look at the different areas would know you have too many. As she said, you have too many. You have people crossing from 44 because there's a parking lot. There's only one traffic light at the farm store, 473 and 44. Then from 473, when it's backed up, you have them coming over on Radio Road. It's a parking lot, and it's ridiculous. And like she said, what if there's an emergency? How are we going to get out? What are we going to do? And I would hate to put someone in a lawsuit if I'm unable, if there's an emergency for an ambulance to get in or out. But it's ridiculous. And yes, I strongly oppose it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I'm not sworn in, but I'd like to say something.
All right, this is the last one getting sworn in today.
Last round of
This is it.
swearing.
I'm not as kind as Ted.
Is there anybody else that's come in late that wishes to say anything that hasn't been sworn in already? Okay, all right. Please raise your right hand, sir. You swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And please
Dan-
don't repeat anything that's been already talked about.
Dan Seymour. I live at 34216 Silver Court Drive, which is across Radio Road from Jackson. What I don't understand is, first off, when we first moved here, that area that you're developing now was supposed to be a nature preserve based on what the information I received back then. I don't know what has happened, what has changed, but right now we got two developments, one north of Radio Road, one south of Radio Road, that have been in full swing. And now you're putting a third one right here on a curve that we've had numerous accidents on. Are you kidding me? Not to mention Treadway School, elementary school. How many kids do you think that can accommodate? 85 homes on what, less than a half acre per home, whatever, something like that? I just don't understand why the emphasis seems to be so greatly on Radio Road now. They were supposed to modify, should I say, Radio Road on that curve 12 to 15 years ago. I got a contract stating such. But now you're going to bring all of these extra homes in an area where we already have two developments already. We may have more going on than I even realize. We just put down an issue with the golf course situation over there. I just don't understand why, everything seems to be headed in our direction. And with all of this being developed, you can only imagine how much more the traffic situation is going to impact us. Not to mention young kids going to school, what have you. So I wish you would truly reconsider what is being done. And frankly, these developments, I don't know who approves them other than, well, like I say, you guys approve them. But some of them I question the research, the foresight that's given them, to the extent how it affects residential customers like myself and this group here. Okay?
Right.
If you live there, you could understand it more, as we are all affected. And if certain projects went into your area, I'm sure you would feel the same way. So I strongly urge that you guys reconsider this and do something about it to just forego this project completely. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, I'm sorry. I got a question for the agenda.
All right, go ahead.
You said your name, Mr. Simone, I'm sorry.
He's asking you a question.
I'm sorry. Can I have your name again, sir, so I can address you the right way?
Dan Seymour, S-E-Y-M-O-U-R.
Okay, Mr. Seymour, you said you had some type of paper that said it was supposed to be a nature preserve.
No. When we first moved here, I had information, or I had heard that area there had been willed to the city, to the county, whatever, as a nature preserve. It was never supposed to be developed.
Okay.
Now, I don't know. I mean, that's just...
nothing we can address because we don't have that information.
Well, and I understand, but if anybody has access to be able to research this and go back and see, you guys certainly should.
Well, if it was a preserve, they would have that information.
There's no
And that
information
hasn't come up, so
like that at all. that
it was
we've
probably
seen.
inaccurate information on.
Well, even okay, but...
All right, well, the time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer that for you? Just the information, so just from right here.
Come up, please. We're about to go to 2 minutes apiece here in a minute.
I don't even need that. That was offered. The owners did offer that to the county, and the county did not take them up on it. I got a letter from some lawyers, and all of us did, and the county didn't do anything. So.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else? Okay.
I'm related to him.
Well, that's fine. Just don't repeat.
She wasn't.
Oh, you weren't sworn in? No, that's it. Yeah, we've done it 3 times now, so that's plenty. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, that's your last chance because we're going to close to the public. We want to get everybody a shot. No. Okay. Will the engineer and the applicant come back up? Or the engineer come up?
I'm not the engineer.
Right. But I said back up, and he hasn't been up yet. Okay, did you get all those questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to respond to some of them, and some are related to the same issues, obviously, as usual.
And make sure you speak up so everybody can hear.
Yes. So basically, I want to address the main issue about kind of the misunderstanding of the access, which is not on Jackson Road. It is on Radio Road. And along Radio Road, the first person actually indicated it would be nice to have buffers and trees, and that's what we specifically incorporated, more than 25 feet. In addition, was another explanation about the sidewalk being on our property as well. So many questions were about the way it's going to look, and I understand that. So this plan is already incorporating the space, the location that does not disturb Jackson Road, and the extra buffer and all the requirements related to the sidewalks along the road. I also heard, again, it's the same thing as Danix, 25 feet right of way, sidewalk, so, this is definitely designed. It's hard to see, obviously, but it is there. In addition, I want to say the homes also have setbacks, 20 feet, 25 feet, and so long, so it's adding also additional green space area. I had a question about the retention pond, about the grade. I know Mr. Gary Beverly here, our civil engineer, can explain this more. I hope I don't make a mistake, but you can explain more. But I don't think we've moved a lot of the grade because that's a pretty good site actually as it is. About the pond, you can answer the question. We had a question about 1- or 2-story homes. So it's a mix of 1- and 2-story homes because of the nature of having larger lots. By definition, most of the time, the larger lots go more to retiree that like 1-story homes. The smaller lots, by other definition, have a good percentage of 2-story, and these are in the purple area. But again, the ratio by experience, having 3 developments, in the area, we have a ratio of 60-40, I would say, basically, 40% being 2-story, 60%. But again, these things are variable. We have, and it's not in our presentation, but we also incorporated ahead a lot of facades and styles, and I know Mr. Melcher, pre-approved and reviewed some of them. In the PUD, we have a percentage of stones, which is close to 30%, and a variation of materials, because we believe this is, and I know you won't like it, but it's a small development comparing to Liberty Preserve and so forth. It's not really the same type that we're designing here. It's an upper development for us as far as the type of home, so the architecture is very important to define that. We had somebody asking the definition of historical tree, historical heritage tree, and so forth. We do have actually a clear definition. And I'm sorry, I need a face ID here. Thank you. So in the reports we had to go back again, and I wanted to do a very precise analysis of the findings of the type of protected trees, specimen trees, heritage tree, historic trees. So we have heritage trees here, but typically a larger than 12-inch DBH individual tree, which unique value. The historic tree, they are native Florida trees, 40-inch and more or larger. In the trees we found, they were located mainly along Jackson Road and some close to the entrance. So they all have been also send back those guys to make the analysis and to see also the wealth or the health of those trees. And basically, out of a number of trees, we have found that some of them are actually hazarded falling and breaking. Some are decayed and so forth. So there is a number. There is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 trees that are considered healthy, and these are the heritage trees that we preserve there and we modify, I said. And then there are 4 trees that are actually falling apart and dangerously sick. These are with all the analyses and photos. I can give them to you if you want also. But this is a response about the definition. And normally we don't do those things ahead, but I know how sensitive it is, and I'd rather have the responses for that type of questions. The traffic, well, guess what? I never heard anything but traffic anywhere. And unfortunately, the speeding is, as a developer, something we cannot do. We don't control those roads. In private roads, we put speeding tables and so forth, but we have zero control about, and unfortunately, we leave traffic and speeding more than ever. And
Just out of curiosity, what's the speed limit like on Jackson? Anybody? 25.
Right. And there's no reason to go on Jackson Road, actually, but our development will not change, actually, anything related to Jackson Road. You're just going to have a fence and a buffer, which is also along, and the big trees, the 11 trees that I mentioned that have been considered as specimen trees, they are going to be kept. So we try to preserve, because I guess it's an asset for us, and we were able to manage, and the civil engineer, Gary, can tell you the latest modification just to do that. As far as the school, some questions, like for every development, we have to get our school concurrency. There is no deficiency as far as we have right now. The school concurrency is done several times, and one close to the time where you do construction. This is how it is. If there is a lack of space, basically, we have to financially participate to compensate, and that's how school boards are funded. I think now I'll let you have Gary as the engineer, but I hope that I covered most of the type of questions we have.
Yeah, just real quick, and I didn't notice it, and Dan didn't say anything about it, but there's not an emergency entrance or exit. Go ahead.
In the city's comprehensive plan, if you have more than 99 units, you have to have an emergency access. In this case, what we did, because it's 85, is getting up there close. If you look on Radio Road, that's not a typical, it's not going to be a typical entrance. It's going to be what we call a boulevard style entrance, which has a little bit wider lanes, and then the landscape going through the middle. What that allows is, if one side is blocked for some reason, the emergency equipment can go through.
Okay.
And that's purposefully put in there, so, for that reason.
I didn't know about the 99. I'm glad you told me that.
Yes, sir.
But I knew someone asked about the emergency access. Go ahead. Please state your name.
Gary Beverly with Civil Design Solutions in Maitland, Florida. Okay. I wanted to try and address the retention pond. The retention pond is not fully designed at this point. This is a concept at this point in the way. We are going to have to do final design that would end up going to permits with DEP, St. Johns River Water Management District, also the city. But the pond is sized properly for the amount of development that is there as a rule of thumb. We have to look at different things like groundwater, where the wet season water table is, as we're close to the wetland and so forth. So more than likely with this type of development, we're not digging down in the ground. We're actually going to berm. And we may dig just a little bit, but most of it will be actually burned up, so we're capturing that water. So we're not affecting the water table in the wetland.
I want to add to what Mr. Beverly is saying. In the city of Leesburg, the retention pond requirements is a 4-to-1 slope, meaning if you go out 4 feet, you can only go down 1 foot. So it leaves a very shallow, which is the reason why a lot of these ponds have to be so large, because you don't want a situation where a pond goes out and then it's wet and it drops off. That poses a danger to people who, either children, people who can't swim, something like that.
Right.
So we have a very low slope on those, which increases the size. But to Mr. Beverly's point, yes, it has to be designed to meet St. John's, FDEP, City of Leesburg, all these other standards, and engineered, not just someone thinking, oh, this is big enough. It literally has to be mathematically work. I think I've seen two problems in 20 years here, and that was it. And one of them was just a homeowner who did something. So
You didn't design those two, did you?
No, he didn't.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Lighten everything up a little bit.
And to add to the wetland protection and so forth, working with the district, St. John's River Water Management District, we can't just develop right up to the wetland edge. We have to give some type of buffer, and they have buffer requirements that we have to meet. So the development just won't end right at the wetland line.
Okay. Does staff have any questions of either the applicant or the engineer? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, we'll close to the audience.
Wait. I forgot.
Okay. Come forward.
The developer. I just wanted to know your home price range, the range of the homes.
It's hard to say now because in 18, after COVID, we doubled the price almost. But what I want to say, in the area, you have Liberty Preserve that was going to hit 400. They went down now to 380 and so forth. In that development, by the time you do a development like this, we probably have 1 year of at least of permitting, 1 year, 18 months. So that means something like this could be a delivery way by the end of 24 or mid-25, because that's about the time to permit and start construction and so forth. And today's cost for the lot developments do not go down. They doubled and sometimes tripled in some areas. So they push the houses to going in the 400s, and we have a development not very far, actually, in Tavares that we're starting soon, and we're hitting the 410 now, 450, when we used to be in 18 in the 225. So in 24, 25, I think we'll be way in the 400s, between 400 or 500s. That's what I believe, at least, if
Okay.
not more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But again, it's hard. I'm very sorry. It's hard to predict because right now things are really different.
Okay, well, we'll close to the public now. Any discussion on this?
I have a question for staff, and I think it's probably a typo. Did the county sent over on page 32? And is talking about the Lake County Department of Public Works
Yes, sir.
recommendation. Up under Radio Road, the very first one, it says access to the development of Radio Road will require both left and right turn lanes on County Road 48.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know County Road 48 was.
Yeah, that's 44.
Oh, okay.
So that needs to be
That
fixed.
is,
Typo. I
that's a
assume.
Lake County typo, not ours, but we will talk to them about that.
Nice eye.
They probably built it off a previous comment on another project, but
A lot of copy and paste.
thank you for that, Mr. Marshall, because I noted that they would require they would require turn lanes, and I did not notice that it said County Road 48. So thank you.
Good eye, Frazier.
So, and to tag off of that, that is showing that the county is saying that they have a lot of addressing road improvements or road.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of things that's going to change about the road in that area. There's a lot. And I see a lot of misplaced anger with us because our job is not really to improve the road.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. So,
correct.
I mean, and my recommendation to the residents would be to get to these county commissioners and make sure they get the things that they need, and maybe even on Jackson Road, some type of speed table that would deter traffic on that road, period, from people going over there. That's the one major thing that I've noticed with this project, that it is looks like the county is going to have to do something. They can't let this fall by the wayside. So a lot of that road planning and improvements that need to be done are on the county. Mm-hmm. Our job is really not to improve the roads, but make sure that the recommendations and the proper planning is actually there.
That's great.
For the proposed development. One thing that it just came to mind, I heard someone, they were talking about the wildlife. Mm-hmm. And I meant to direct that towards the developer. I'm sorry, it just happened like that. That if there's anything that is there any tortoises, anything that they are going to address in that area? Because they're.
He already said that he has.
That's been mentioned several times.
I've heard mention, no, but but I've heard the developer has not addressed what they were going to do about the wildlife. I've heard mention from residents, but not the developer.
The developer said that they found 8 or 9 tortoises on the property.
They found them.
Well, they have to.
Oh, okay.
There's rules set up.
Yeah,
for that.
okay. The tortoises.
It's like building in wetlands. You can't build in wetlands.
I understand.
So there's no need to,
that. But I also wanted them to address. There was a resident that had an address about the other wildlife. Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't fall on them, I just want that to be publicly said.
Sure. There is the requirement for a wildlife plan that looks at what's out there, looks for species of special concern, such as the tortoises, such as the bald eagles, and not here, but manatees and other places, things like that. So, and that plan has to be followed per the PUD requirements.
Okay, so the developer would be addressing.
He does
those
have to address that, yes,
right.
ma'am.
They're only required to address the tortoise, bald eagles, but not pigs or turkeys.
Not really.
Yeah, there's
okay.
Not really.
no way to
That's what I was trying to get. That's what I was trying to get at, because that was one concern that was brought up by a concerned neighbor that wasn't addressed. We only said tortoises.
Right.
So that's what I was getting at.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Just for clarification, usable land, the density is more like 2.6 to 2.8 units per acre, just to clarification.
All right.
Yeah, I think 2.8 was somewhere. I heard it or read it somewhere. I don't think it was said. All right. Sorry?
No.
All right, anything else? All right, we'll close for I'll accept the motion, one way or the other.
Well, if I were Nathan's looking for the number. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I would like to make a motion to approve LSCP 23126.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed, do the same. Okay, we got 2 opposed. Okay, the ayes have it.
And I need to just let staff know, these small units, small lot size, Now, I've been saying it
Understood.
for years.
These are larger than many that have been approved, and we've been moving in that
Yes.
direction
Yes.
for a while now.
Yeah, we've gotten away from the 40s completely.
Yes, I know. Thank God.
All right. Yeah, I do like the way they did
agree.
the bigger ones on the outside, too.
Right. That's part of what we've been responding to.
Okay. All right. On public hearing case number CUP, oops, wrong one, sorry. When we do two at a time, those.
Do we need to approve the PUD?
Yeah, I'm looking for the number.
23-129.
We haven't approved the last one yet, but just for your information, it's still got to go before the city commission twice. So you still have another chance to speak at city commission. Well, we're still in meeting, so I don't want to get into a discussion. I'm just being informative as far as the meeting, giving you an opportunity. Thank you. Please, we're still having a meeting here. Okay, public case number PUD 23-129. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve PUD 23129.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed? All right, ayes have it.
Moving right along. Sorry.
Do what?
No, I'm just talking out loud. Thinking and talking. It's okay.
They're going to get it wrong.
I'm done.
It won't affect you. Just hit it about.
Yeah, I just.
It won't affect them really.
All right, public hearing case number CUP 23-164, Lake Montessori School, conditional use permit. All yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a conditional use permit to convert existing law offices on Lee Street into school classrooms and offices on a .779 acre parcel south of Webster Street and west of Lee Street. The current zoning is R2 medium density residential, and the request again is currently used for office space, does not require demolition or reconstruction for the proposal. By way of quick background, the Planning Commission has seen and approved a couple of other conditional use permits in this general area for the Lake Montessori School for this use in the past. There are currently law offices located there that the request is to convert into classrooms and offices for the school. Currently, the property to the south on the map there at 415 Lee Street houses the school, and the property to the west is owned and used by the school for educational purposes. Melissa Metters, planner with the office, will present the maps and photo exhibits to include the aerial zoning, future and surrounding land use, wetlands, and flood zone maps.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Miller. As you can see on the aerial, the subject property is generally located south of Webster Street and west of Lee Street.
Make sure you speak.
I know. Next slide.
You're coming and going.
The subject property is zoned as R2 medium density residential. The future land use for this property is low density residential. The property has surrounding land uses, a residential to the north, private school to the west and south, and retention area to the east. The property has a little bit of flood zone AE on the eastern side, but does not have any wetlands on site. The property is in the 27441 community redevelopment area, and the property is in the Commission District 1. From the sign postings, this shows the close-up of the sign on property on Lee Street, then looking north along Lee Street, then looking east, sort of southeast across Lee Street from the property, then looking south along Lee Street. This one shows looking west across Lee Street onto the property, and then a close-up of the sign on the property on Webster Street. This one shows looking north across Webster Street and looking east across Webster Street and Lee Street intersection. This shows the property shows looking south along Webster Street onto the property and looking west along Webster Street. And that's all I have, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Melissa. With that, we move to the departmental review summary. The project was sent out to all city departments, plus Lake County Government and School Board. There were no substantive comments from the city departments. We did receive from the public responses to the 200-foot surrounding property notice and sign and advertisement. We did receive one approval, and we did not receive any disapprovals on this one. I'd like to go ahead and read the recommendation into the record. The project Lake Montessori School for a conditional use permit to allow the conversion of law offices into classrooms under conditional use permit 23-164. The Planning and Zoning Division recommends approval of this request for the following reasons. One, the request meets the criteria set forth in Section 25-141 conditional uses and Section 25-284 district use regulations of the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances for the granting of a conditional use permit to allow for conversion of law offices into classrooms for a private school. Two, subject to the conditions listed below, the proposed conditional use does not appear to create a detrimental impact on surrounding properties. And three, the request does not create an inconsistency with the City of Leesburg Comprehensive Plan. We go through with the following conditions is that this CUP is granted to allow the permittee to utilize the building for an educational institution in an R2 medium density zoning district per the previously mentioned code sections. The conditional use permit will be subject to all City of Leesburg code requirements, including zoning and building code regulations. The granting does not exempt the applicant from any other applicable regulations of the City of Leesburg and other
That's a tough one.
Other governmental agencies. Violations of the conditions could result in the permit becoming null and void, and this permit has to be properly executed within 90 days. So the action requested is to approve the conditional use permit for the subject property to allow for the conversion of law offices into classrooms for a private school. Wanted to note that the current zoning, again, is R2 medium density residential. The existing use for a law office has been there for how many years? I don't know.
Bunches.
Many.
35, 40.
The request, and I'm sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but more than likely under a previous zoning code, some say 30, 40 years ago, you could do a what was then called a special exception use. And that was probably what happened, but we didn't see the need to go into that for an office use. And the current zoning being R2 medium density residential, this request poses no major change to the traffic patterns or to the use of the building. It's currently office space for the attorneys and staff, and therefore it doesn't require demolition or construction for the school use. And the school itself is frankly pretty well buffered by Lake Charles to the east. I don't know if you know that is known as Lake Charles.
I didn't know it was named.
It's official, yes, sir.
Charles who?
Charles somebody in that area, I'm sure it was named. I'm not quite sure.
Probably Chuck.
But it is. It's officially
Charles Johnson.
I do know that it's named Lake Charles.
That's probably he'd thank you for.
And then it's got the city's trail system to the south of the Montessori School and the playground. Back to the north, there are quiet residential, nice residential units in there. And then back to the west, you have some residential, but the school also owns some of those. So with that, the staff supports this request, and Mr. Ryan Solstice of LPG Group of Mount Dora is here to represent Dr. Hugo, who is the director of the, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, who is the director of the Montessori School. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if it makes you feel better, I couldn't say aluminum growing up.
I'm glad we got that perfectly clear.
Ryan Solstice, 1160.
Any questions, staff, before we move forward? Okay, sorry.
Ryan Solstice, 1162 Camp Avenue, Mount Dora, Florida. Dan pretty much summarized it really well. No changes to the exterior or any of the landscaping will be done. It'll all be site plan interior if it was approved for the conditional use tonight. Several other conditional uses have been filed for in the past and granted by this body. At this time, there really doesn't seem to be much of an impact on the adjacent neighbors. And at this time, there's going to be between 2 and 3 classrooms, depending on kind of the layout of the building once the architects get into it. And that's going to generate anywhere between 20 to 25 students a classroom. At this time, they're allowed up to a maximum of 72, but with the additional offices that they envision, it'll probably be limited to 2 classrooms of that range of students. And that's about it. I guess there's one little thing just to enlighten the commission. The parking here is used the vocational school, and it did not quite meet the parking requirement outright. We were short 1 space, but a vocational school obviously is where people tend to drive to for technical skills. These are elementary students getting dropped off. At this time, there's really not an issue with traffic in this immediate area, so I don't see an extra 40 students causing a complete backup on site or being outside the scope of what is required by code for parking. And with that, I'll entertain any questions by the commission.
I've got one question. I can't see with that blue. Is that retention?
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the existing. There's a giant swale when you drive through there.
Yeah, I couldn't see it on here. Is there going to be a path made or some kind of walkway for the kids so they don't have to go out to the highway or out to the road?
I think eventually they would like to fence the whole property, but at this time the client didn't indicate to me if there's exactly going to be a cut through. That's something I can certainly pass along to the client.
It's just a suggestion on my part because Lee Street gets crazy through there. People drive like nuts.
Okay.
So that was my only question. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, let me make sure. Anybody in the audience want to speak for or against? I guess that's a no. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to motion that we approve CUP 23-164. CUP 23164.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Now, I should have voted against it because I tried to get the zoning across the street changed so I could open an office there. But that was about 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I never took an application, but
I remember the past 30 years.
Staff said, nah. Sorry.
Moving right along.
If I see an opportunity, I'm going to try to get a laugh. Sorry.
It's on record.
On new business number 4, public hearing case, variance, VAR 23-165, Allen patio variance. Let me guess who you're here for.
Commissioner, Chairman.
Yes.
May I be excused? I have a commitment that I needed to be at about 6 o'clock. We have better than a quorum here, so I think my absence won't be.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Excuse
I also have a commencement at 7 o'clock, but I should be okay.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
We can, Mr. Chairman, if it's all right, we can ask Ms. Peoples to come up and sit in one of the blank seats, one of the empty seats, if that's okay, since she came.
Yeah, we probably
Is that all right,
we ought to
sir?
bring her up here.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm good right now. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's not going to take too long. I don't think.
Houston, I'm good.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
I can tell by the volume of people.
I think your purse will be all right there. We'll keep an eye on it for you.
Is there anything good in there?
Thanks, Max.
All right, thank you. Any questions of staff or? Well, you hadn't brought it up. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I may, Mr. Chairman, for variance 23-165, the island patio variance, this is a request for a variance to allow for a paver patio with a solid roof that goes into the 15-foot rear property utility easement and the 18-foot setback. So it reduces the setback, just to summarize it, from 18 feet to 11 feet to allow for the pavers and the solid roof patio. This is an unusual circumstance, which is why we're here. The current zoning is R1 low-density residential, which does require an 18-foot rear setback. However, there is also a 15-foot rear utility easement, which lies within that 18-foot setback. That 15-foot rear is about double the size of what we normally require. This property was platted, I'm guessing, 15, 20 years ago. It's been a while. And that width is double the size of what's normally required, and it's inconsistent with some other areas within the same plat. So at this point, I'd like to ask Max Van Allen, planner with the department, to show us the maps and photos, including the aerial zoning, future surrounding land use, plot plan, plat, and site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. For the aerial, this property is located south of Parkdale Drive and west of Broadwater Avenue. As was stated, the City of Leesburg zoning is R1, with R1 to the north, east, and south. To the west is Lake County R4 zoning, which is also residential. The surrounding uses include residential and residential commons to the west. There are no flood zones or wetlands present on this property, and it is in Commission District 5. We've added a diagram of the easement here in the kind of tan color surrounding the edges of the property. You can see that in the rear is that 15-foot measurement. So there's easements running all the way around the edges of these properties.
That computer is different than this one.
This one's nicer.
Yeah, you like it.
Here's some images of sign postings.
Okay.
Close-up of signs looking west onto the property on Broadwater Avenue.
Hang on a second.
Yes, sir.
We're doing fine.
Okay. I just want everybody talking during the testimony, because that's the way you get to vote, if you hear everything. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So looking north along Broadwater Avenue in the bottom image, and then looking east across Broadwater Avenue, and looking south along Broadwater Avenue. And then finally looking west onto the property on Broadwater Avenue. And if needed, I can also present additional exhibits on the easement if requested. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Max. So in looking at the departmental review summary that, again, was sent out to all city departments, Lake County government, and the school board, no substantive comments from the departments, one response of approval, and like to go ahead and talk about this in a little more detail before we read the recommendation. Max and I Max was contacted by Mr. Troy and Ms. Karen Allen, the property owners who wanted to put over solid roof extension on the back, like a back porch, and some brick pavers on bottom. Perfectly legitimate request. When we dug into it, what we found was that on the subdivision plat, there were 6 lots on this side of the roadway that were all impacted by this same large easement, unusually large easement. We checked with our utility providers in Public Works. They agreed there was no imposition or issue, because the only thing down there, I believe it was it sewer, Max?
I believe it was sewer 4-inch pipe.
Yes, 4-inch sewer pipe. So it's not like it's a big one. Max and I went out to the property. We talked with Mr. and Ms. Allen. We checked with the utility providers. What we found was some inconsistency on the plats. Behind Mr. and Ms. Allen's house, there's a 15-foot. If you go right around the corner, there's only a 10 in the same subdivision. So from a staff standpoint, we would not let this happen today. It happened back in the day when it was required. Since this request is not creating an imposition on the adjacent properties, staff felt like that there's nothing wrong with this request. Now, because of the way code is written, not every variance is going to meet the 6 specific criteria that we have to look at. And so we have to ask you from time to time to apply common sense to it. And was there anything you wanted to add, Max, as far as our visit or anything like that in regard to this project?
Sure. So on the exhibit at the end of the variance, there's actually a comparison of the plats. So directly just across the street, same side of Broadwater Avenue, they have the 7.5 rear easement, which is what is called out on the very first page of the plat, that all rear easements should be within the plat. So we feel this is an issue and is putting an undue difference on certain residents of this subdivision. So I just wanted to call your attention to the additional diagrams if you feel you need them.
Thank you. It's on page 121 and 122. You'll see the difference in the easements. And in looking at that, we, Max and I agreed that we felt like it was placing an undue burden on Mr. and Ms. Allen and the remaining 5 properties there. So if they come in for variances as well, we'll probably request the same thing. So with that, under the recommendation for the request for the Allen patio variance to allow for a 4-foot encroachment of the patio paver with solid roof into the rear utility easement and rear setback reduction from 18 feet to 11 feet for variance 23-165, Planning and Zoning Division's recommending approval of this request for the following reasons. 1, the proposed request is to allow a reduction of the rear setback from 18 feet to 11 feet, which includes a 4 ± foot encroachment of a solid roof paver patio into the rear 15-foot utility easement. The proposed request on this 0.2-acre lot will correct a discrepancy in rear utility easements recorded in Seasons at Park Hill Plat Book 73, page 39 through 42 for lots 53 through 58. It will correct actually for this particular lot, not lots 53 through 58. Sorry, Max, I didn't see that. But it will correct it for this one lot. The variance to the current zoning does not create a negative impact or detriment to surrounding properties, the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, or the adopted comprehensive plan. The request is to vote to approve staff recommendation to allow a variance to Section 25-280, Table 4.2, District Development Standard, thereby allowing a reduction of the rear setback from 18 to 11 feet, which includes a 4 ± foot encroachment of a solid roof paver patio into the rear 15-foot utility easement on Lot 57 of Seasons at Park Hill, Plat Book 73, page 41. And Mr. and Ms. Allen are here today. We thank you for coming. That's all staff has, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I appreciate that because that was my only issue was, Fred taught us a long time ago that, variances can't be created or should be created by the applicant,
Correct.
From hardship and all that. And that satisfies my...
Yes, sir, and I had the same conversation with Fred as well.
Right.
We can't allow a variance to be created by the applicant, but on the other hand, this is a very unusual circumstance,
right,
and you won't get the 6 criteria out of this variance. So, but it still creates an undue hardship on the property owner wherever they are in the subdivision,
right,
in staff's opinion.
Right, mine too.
Yeah, I was just going to, I completely agree. I mean, the hardship element of the variance consideration is really sort of crucial to the consideration. And as you guys were saying, if you create the hardship versus you go to the hardship, that's a totally different scenario. And so as Fred had said in the past, that's absolutely correct. There is a meaningful distinction between those 2 scenarios. So, as you said, when you come to the scenario, it's looked at completely differently from the perspective of whether a variance would be appropriate or not.
Cool. Good. Is there anything y'all would like to add to it?
Do I need to come up, sir?
Well, if you want to speak, you do, but Be honest, I don't think you need to speak. I think it's a done deal. I didn't say that shit.
You did.
Karen Allen,
And what's your address, please?
31723 Broadwater Ave,
Thank you.
Leesburg. So I wanted to say real quick that I just wanted to thank Leesburg, the city of Leesburg. My home is beautiful. I love it. And I want you to know that you probably will never see me sit out here and vote against a PUD, a PUD. I would not have my home if Park Hill Front blocked Park Hill Seasons. I wouldn't have my home. And I don't know if people think about that when they complain or talk about no, but I just wanted to say that. My home is beautiful,
that is nice to hear good stuff.
and I'm so glad that you guys did not agree with Park Hill Front when Park Hill Back was being built. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion if you were ready.
All right. Unless there's other questions from anybody.
No, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, on case number VAR 23165, I recommend approval.
I second it.
Make a motion. Yeah. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Against? Same.
She approved.
That's why I don't take you nowhere.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and happy building.
And congratulations on your home.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. My wife didn't allow me to speak because she tells me I talk too much.
You had 3 whole minutes.
I just wanted to thank Max and Dan because they educated us. We're from New Jersey, so as you can imagine, the mess in New Jersey.
I'm going there next week.
Being educated here on the process, I appreciate all their help. They went the extra mile on it. I appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you both.
And thank you for saying that. The staff's incredible.
This one goes to Max. She did all the heavy lifting.
I thought it went too smoothly. I was wondering.
The easement is jacked up.
Is there anything else? Anything else for the good of the order? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Third, fourth.
All right. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Wait for me.
See, that's why I don't like you.
See you, man. Bye. Take care. You too.
Good trip, too.